It was late October, and the Romney Hythe Dymchurch Railway was preparing for its Halloween trains. One night, the day before the trains were due to run, the engines were all settling down for the night and were getting into the spooky spirit. "How about we tell ghost stories?" Simplex grinned. "It could be fun." "Rubbish," scoffed Red Gauntlet. "Everyone knows ghosts don't exist." "I have a good ghost story," Hercules chimed in. "I heard it a while ago, and it's pretty spooky." "Oh yeah," Typhoon said sarcastically. "I'm shivering in my frames." All the engines roared with laughter, but Hercules just frowned. "Humph," he snorted. "Well, you won't be giggling when my story practically scares you to pieces." "Pah!" laughed Typhoon. "You couldn't scare a puzzle to pieces." "Go on then," Green Goddess smiled. "Let us scaredy engines listen in amazement." As soon as the others had quieted down, Hercules began. This was before Typhoon and Hurricane came here. There was an engine that was suggested to be number 5 on this railway, even before Samson and I arrived. His name was Gordon. He was built to the design of Green Goddess, but was painted blue. However, I was chosen to be the number 5, and Samson was chosen as the number 6. To avoid any confusion, Gordon had his number slightly altered, and he became the RH&DR's number 15. Now, when I took on the role as the number 5, Gordon was quite jealous. He held a big grudge against me for a long time, and would always accuse me of stealing his number. I would try to be nice and give him advice, but "I don't listen to thieves," is all he would say. One dark and stormy afternoon, Gordon had been assigned to take a train of supplies to Dungeness. When he arrived, he waited just outside the station in the rain. I had warned him about the lightning, but of course he didn't listen. That would end up being his downfall. A bolt of lightning struck Gordon square in the boiler, completely destroying him. Even the ground around his remains was quite torn up. The only thing left were his nameplates, which we now keep in the back of the shed out of respect. Although, Gordon's spirit is quite restless. On stormy nights, people have seen his ghostly figure waiting at the station before it disappears into the night. Just remember that when you travel to Dungeness, the station by the sea, you may encounter Gordon, our long-lost number 15. The engines were silent. Scooter and Simplex were almost shaking with fear, while Dr. Sin and Winston Churchill talked about how interesting it would be to actually see the ghost. Typhoon, however, was not having any of it. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You actually believe that rubbish story?" "Well, there's no physical proof that ghosts don't exist," Hurricane said, looking quite nervous. "I don't believe it," Typhoon said firmly, "and I don't believe in ghosts." "Are you sure?" Basil asked, smirking. Typhoon didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes and went to sleep. The next day, the Halloween trains began. Dr. Sin was given the honor of pulling the specials and was given special decorations. On the first run, he rolled past Typhoon as she was filling up on coal. "Make sure that Gordon's ghost doesn't get you," he laughed. "There's no such thing as ghosts," Typhoon snapped. Late in the evening, the manager came to see the engines. "I'll need one of you to make a special trip to Dungeness. There have been reports of uneven track near the station, so one of you needs to inspect it." All the engines looked at Typhoon with big grins. "Fine," she said. "If you scaredy engines are too afraid to go, I'll do it." With that, she steamed away. "And I'll prove that Gordon doesn't exist," she said quietly to herself. As she made her way, she kept telling herself that ghosts weren't real and that Hercules must have been joking. "Gordon doesn't exist," she repeated softly. "Gordon doesn't exist." Suddenly, she heard a huge crack of thunder. "Looks like rain's on the way," the driver sighed. "Yeah," Typhoon said, but she started to feel uneasy. All she could imagine was the sight of Gordon being destroyed by the bolt of lightning. However, she shook off the thought. "I don't believe in ghosts," she murmured. Finally, Typhoon stopped at the station. Her driver inspected the tracks as she looked at her surroundings. The lights from the station and lighthouse casted an eerie glow onto the land, which made Typhoon shiver. When her driver had finished with his inspection, he climbed back in the cab. "The tracks seem all right to me, Ty," he said. "I'll tell the track crew when we get back." "Sure thing," Typhoon said. Then she heard a whistle in the distance. She was quite surprised, as she was certain she was the only engine out at the time. She heard the whistle again. Now she started to feel nervous. She could hear the sound of an engine approaching and stopping just before the station platform. "Show yourself!" she called. She could see glimpses of the engine in the light from the lighthouse. She hoped it was Hurricane or Hercules or anyone else. Anyone but... "Gordon!" she cried. She saw blue paint on the engine and immediately knew who it was. Typhoon raced away as fast as she could. At the sheds, the engines were all discussing the topic of Halloween, when Typhoon steamed in, looking absolutely horrified. "Gordon is real! I saw him!" she cried. The others were quite surprised, and even Hercules looked slightly shocked. Then they could hear an engine approaching the sheds. "It's him!" Typhoon hissed and shut her eyes tight. But as the engine came to a stop next to her, she was bewildered to find that it was Samson. "What's up with you, Typhoon?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "I go out to see if you need any help, and you just run away like you saw a ghost." Typhoon's face went red, and Hercules burst out laughing. "You are a silly engine," he smiled. "I was pulling your wheels." "What do you mean?" Typhoon asked. "I made the story up," Hercules explained. "The Gordon I was referring to was a life-size model made for a Thomas and Friends event some years ago. In fact, I think it's still in the storage shed." "See, Typhoon," Northern Chief said. "Gordon was real, just not in the way that you thought." Typhoon had to admit that the story was a good one, even if she didn't believe it at first. Samson still found the whole ordeal to be rather funny. "I'm surprised you ran off like you did," he chuckled. "I mean, I'm not that scary."